discuss about the latest tech which is being researched globally, and thereafter we'll walking you through important tagging of the data sets, because when you're mining or trying to understand, so mining is a different process, but from the standpoint view of interpreting those mathematical formulas, you need to understand the tagging of the data and why has to be correct, so that with the right input data, the most pressing problems of the world can be resolved. And particularly from this standpoint view, I've been discussing that one of the papers is already um, researched and it is going to be published this month. The next paper would be the research is still on, and overall we have bifurcated the landscape of the data into four different quadrants, keeping in mind the circular economy, which is a very important phrase to when you're trying to solve a problem in the given scheme of things. So we'll start with the timeline of the tech we wish to discuss. Again and again, a lot of questions are being pressed upon in terms of whether it is a good process to file a patent design registration at the first. In most of the cases, the counterpart applicant, that is the applicant of the application, has no clue as to what design is all about, because design is just the aesthetic to how it is perceived by the user. It has nothing to do with the functionality. It has nothing to do with the functionality, which is paramount when we are trying to understand the difference between a patent and a design registration. However, the process can be speedy enough if we are able to combat or able to satisfy the requirements of getting a speedy patent in India. However, remember, once the patent is registered, you need to pay the annuity fees, and that applicability is on a yearly basis. You can pay in advance, get a little bit of rebate, but that's how it's traded right now under the Indian patent law. Then there are a couple of things in terms of if you're MSME registered, which I would recommend that you should be, or you should be started registered to get the fee reduction in India. But remember one thing, or WIPO, that is World Intellectual Property Organization based out in Geneva, that fee structure is not applicable. So you end up paying a big chunk amount at an international level. So you need to have a very strategic approach as to how you wish to apply for the patents at the first place. So that is point number one. Then what has happened right now is the amendments happened 2 years back. Just reiterating the amendments before we move forward. The examination request period has been reduced from 48 months to 31 months. So that is there. Um, the timeline has been expedited, which is less than 1 year right now. And the eligible applicants for this case is startup MSMEs, women innovators, and educational institutes. There is early discount, that is 10% reduction for every 4 years payment in advance. So you can go with that if you are going for the process of the patent grant. However, there are always means in terms of trade secrets, contracts, agreements. There is multiple contracts. The more the title of the contract and the agreement, the better it is. So rather than having a very detailed contract agreement in place between vendors and whatever the relationship between different parties in that particular case, it is always good to have a title and just focus on the title, have multiple agreements. That makes sure that in case of any dispute, if at all in the near future, you can always go back and you say, hey, you signed this at the first place. The title itself was very clear. Ambiguity should be negligible so that you can focus on the important aspects. We are in Web 3.0, so that understanding has to be there. Okay, so let's understand this aspect right now from the point of view of um, filing an application that's in Web 2.0. Let's just go through the Web 3.0 applications. I'm putting myself on mute. Have any questions? Put your questions in the comment box below. Okay, first of all, we'll start with the tagging of the data set, and particularly the focus would be on the networking aspect, how the communication network works in real time. Okay, so in this particular case, we have the arrangement for networking, that is H10/27. For the router and the switch aspects, we have H0 4Q11/0005, and next we have wavelength division for its systems, that is H0 4Q. Um, so this is H0 4J14/02 wavelength division multiplex systems. Okay, now in this particular case, we have OC-CML communication module link extender. Now, what has happened in the prior art? Let's discuss a little bit about the prior art and what can be developed in 2026. That's the intent of the video. Um, Now, in this particular case, what are the factors as to how much data can be uh, transferred in terms of the transmission speed of one Gbps? Now, let's try and understand from this point of view of the growth of the devices and the amount of bandwidth capacity. If somebody has looked into data set right now, in China, in at least a couple of places, 10G is in practice. I mean, we have 10G use case studies, so you can understand the kind of advent of devices have been utilized just to get to 10G. We are still struggling in terms of the country to provide 3G and 4G services in all parts of the country. Okay, so let's try and understand this. Today, if 1 million families in a city decide to view a video on a website, say for example, the website could be, or the web domains could be YouTube, HBO, DirecTV, and the like, then the network transmission rates is in the order of 200 terabyte. Now, with the transmission rate of 1 terabyte, it is possible to transmit 200 million simultaneously full duplex phone calls or transmit the text from perhaps 300 years worth of daily newspaper per second. However, if we are trying to understand the landscape of the data set from 1994 to 1998 on the timeline, it is estimated that the demand on the US inter-exchange carrier, that is ISP network, would increase sevenfold. Now, what has happened? For example, ISPs, Internet Service Provider companies, indicated the amount of embedded optical fibers already in use at the time were 70 to 80%. This is in 1995. On the timeline, we are in 2025. So, what is happening right now, or what is the problem statement? The problem with cable companies is the challenge of integrating diverse technologies on the physical infrastructure. Customer demands and competitive pressures mandate that carriers offer diverse services economically viable over embedded network. The different types of data may include LAN voice sources, then we have VoIP, voice over the internet protocol, um, web browser sources, SMS, short messaging services, video messaging services. MMS was a hit in late 90s in India, and then the others. Now, what we are trying to understand in this particular case is the utilization of OC-CML. OC-CML stands for Optical Communication Module Link Extender, and it allows cable companies to offer these services regardless of the OSI, that is Open System Interconnection Model Network Layer, or we have MAC. So MAC layer is basically media access control. Now, when we are trying to understand how the packet is being exchanged, let's go to the system. That is dense wave division multiplexer. Then we have WDM, that is first wave division multiplexer. Amplifier here is the booster optical amplifier. Then we have WDM, third WDM, and also this is from the standpoint view of writing a technical paper, and the difference between a technical paper and a patent here is um, when same thing is being utilized as an element or a component, it is always good to utilize the term first, second, third, and then rephrase it from the standpoint view of explaining how first, second, third component is working. And then for the embodiments, you can always say, it can interchange as and when required, because interchange and interoperability. So interchange and interoperability are particular keys when we are talking about the communication networks and how it should be working at the first place. Okay, we have here a VOA, that is variable optical actuator communicating coupled to the second WDM and the like. Um, Here we are trying to understand this optical communication module link extender as a third WDM, which is receiving a gigabyte passive optical signal, so that is GPON, uh, optical data signal, and combines the gigabyte passive optical network with the second optical data signal to create the third optical data signal. And how it is useful, let's talk about that aspect. And then we'll move on to the next application. Okay, then so the one which I have in front of me is an old application, but we can always utilize the classification part of it to understand the division of data. So for this particular case, I have H04Q11 slash 0067 provision for optical access or distribution network, that is gigabit Ethernet passive optical network, APON, that is ATM-based passive optical network, and we have PON ring. And so it's PON PON is here is passive optical network. Then we have for the allocation sharing one wavelength for at least a group of ONUs. So that is H04J14 slash 0247. For admission control, we have H04L 47 slash 76. That is the resource allocation using